Okay, so this is officially session number 3, and up until now we have went through the entire introduction here. We went through the basics and we built out our database in the last session, and now we want to start performing CRUD operations. So CRUD operations, for anybody that doesn't know, that stands for create, read, update, and delete. So this is our ability to view stuff from the database, modify it, and so on. So what we're going to do here is we're going to start by building something called a model form, and then we're going to move on to actually performing those operations. So at this point, this is what our website looks like, and all we have here is a homepage that lists out our projects, and we have a project page. So when we go to one of these projects here, we can actually see it. So we can see this is project 3, we can see information about that project. If I go to this e-commerce project, we can basically see details. So this is the read part in CRUD. So right now we have read done, and we want to move on to create, update, and delete now. So before we do that, there's different ways of doing this. With class-based views, there's a very simple way of doing this because we have a built-in view that pretty much does everything that we need for it. All we need to do is modify the view and just output some stuff there. So that's it. So class-based views make this very simple, but we want to do this with function-based views because we want to see the actual process. I would recommend starting with function-based views, and once you understand what's actually happening, move on to those, and we'll do that later on in the course. So function-based views is how we're going to do this, and before we build in those views, let's start with the model form. So a model form is a really cool way of making forms with Django. So what we're going to do here is we're going to create a Python class, and this class is going to create a form based on a representation of a model. So model form, it creates a form based around any model that we provide it. So to do this, and things will start making sense as we go along here, so don't worry if it doesn't click right away, but the first thing we want to do is create a file to store all of our forms. And these forms are going to give us form fields. They're going to handle a lot of the actions for us when it comes to adding or updating items and stuff like that. So the first thing we're going to do is go into our project, and we need to create a file called forms.py. So we're going to store all of our model forms in this section here. And inside of our forms.py, we need to make some imports so we can actually create a model form. So let's go ahead and do that. And this is going to be from Django. So from Django.db.models and then .base. And no, that's not the right import. So 1 second. So this is from Django. I completely messed up the file path. This is from Django.forms. And we want to import model form. So we have our model form, and we actually need to import the models that we want to create a form around. So we're going to do from Django, and this is going to be not from Django. Sorry guys, I keep messing that up. I'm going to do from the root directory. We're just going to import, or from models, let's import the project model. So we have the model form class, and we have a project. Now to actually create a model form, we're just going to create a class here, and the convention I like to use is to use the class name and then just say form. So in this case, we're going to create a project form like that. So I just capitalize the first letter here, and then we inherit from model form. So this is going to make it officially a model form. So we have that, and then we need to set class meta here. And in here, we need to specify 2 minimal fields here. So the first one is what model do we want to create a form around? So we're just going to do model here, and we need to specify the actual model, and that's going to be project. And then we need to specify the fields too. So for the fields here, I could do a list here, and I can specify all the fields that I want to output in this form. So I can go ahead and do title here. So we'll do title, and then we can add in description and so on. So we can output an entire list, and then only the attributes in this list will be output. So in our case, I just want to output all the fields for now. So we're just going to do a string double underscore all and then double underscore. So this is now a model form. So let's see what this actually looks like. So if I go into my views here, so inside of the app views.py, we first need to import this model form. So we're just going to do from, and then we'll do .forms. So it's in the same file path. Let's go ahead and import our project form. And that's it. So we took this form and we imported this into our views. So we have the model form, and I believe that's all we had to set up here. So we just create the model form, and actually at this point I actually want to render it too, because it won't fully make sense unless I actually render that form. So let's do that too. So we have our project form, so our model form, and we need to create a view to actually add projects. So I'm going to take this link out here. So this link breaks because at this point it's going to a hard-coded URL. We're not actually going to have this. So let's just add in an add project link here. So first I'm going to go into the navigation here. We're just going to modify that. So we'll go into, let's see, our nav bar, and we're just going to change this to add project. So at this point, any user can add a project, and I'm going to set the URL here too. So for the URL, we're going to use the URL tags. We just covered this in the last video, and we're just going to do add project, or let's just do create dash project. So that's going to be the URL name. So we haven't created this, so we'll make this right now. So in the views, now we need to create a new view to handle all of the creation. And by the way, I can get rid of this right here. I don't think we use this project list anymore. So let's go ahead and remove all of this. Get rid of that, clean things up here, and I can just take out these comments too. So let's get rid of that. So now we're actually querying real data from the database. So we don't need those. So in here, let's go ahead and create a new view, and I'm going to call this create project. So I'm going to camel case that. And this is a standard view, so we'll pass in request, and then let's just do return. And in here, we're just going to do render, and we need to pass in request and then set the template. So the template here, we haven't created this, so I'm going to make all this right now. So we're going to go into projects / and then I'm going to create a form called project-form.html, or a template called project form. So this form right here, or this template, will be used for creating and updating projects. So when we create a project or click on the create link, we're going to have an empty form ready to fill in new information. When we use this inside of an update view, like we go to edit a project, we're going to have pre-filled information. So the contents of the actual template or the form will change depend on what page we're on. So I need to go to my templates here. So inside of projects, inside of templates, so we are in the projects app. Remember, we have two different templates. Let's go ahead and create this. So we'll just do project-form.html. And yeah, that's what I called it. I always forget the names like right after I do it. So in here, we also want to extend from the main template. So let's set that up really quick. So we'll just do extends here. This is all stuff that we just learned. So we'll just do main.html. We already extended templates, and let's create the body tags here, or the block tags. So we'll do block content and then end block content. Okay, so we have our template, and this is what we want to do with our form. So we created a model form, and we imported that into our views. So it's called project form right now. So to use this, all we need to do is set a variable, and I'm going to call it form, and we just need to instantiate the project form. So we'll just do project form, and then we add in those parentheses, so we're making an instance of this class, and then I'm going to pass this into the context dictionary and render it in the template. So we'll do context, then that's going to be the dictionary like that. We'll pass in the form, and we need to pass this into the template. Not like that. Okay, sorry. Okay, context like that. So we pass in the form. So we take the form and we pass it into the template. Now in the actual template, we're going to see something really cool happen here. So the first thing is I want to make sure the template's working. So let's just say create project or something here. So I want to add in an H1 tag, and we'll just do create project. So let's output that, and let's make sure the link works. So we went to the nav bar. We added that URL, which we have not created, so totally forgot about that. So we need to take this view, create that link here. So we'll just create a new path here, or a new pattern, and we'll just do create dash project / and then we need to set the view, views.create project, and we'll give it the name of create project. Okay, so we have the URL, we have the view, and we pass in the form, and we have the template. So if I click on this link now, because we have it linked in the navigation bar, that should take us to that page. So add project here, if I click on this, here is our template. So we're just extending the main template, so we're inheriting, and now we want to actually output the form. So instead of having to hand code the form, this is what the model form does for us. It's a really cool thing here. It helps us in the template, and it also helps us a lot in the backend. So in here, we're going to create a form here. For the form, we want to specify the method. So there are different types of methods. These are simply HTTP methods. There's get, which is the default method. Anytime you open up a page, you're getting data. We have a post method, which is usually when we're sending data to the backend. This is usually when we're creating something. There are put methods when we're updating. There's delete methods and a lot of other ones here. So at this point, we're only working with get and post. So we're sending data to the backend. Now for the action, at this point, I'm going to leave that as an empty string. So action typically sends you somewhere. So it's a URL to where you want to send this data to. In our case, we're going to send it to the same URL, and now we're just sending it as a post method. So if I leave that blank, it's just going to send it to the current URL that we're on. So inside of any Django form, and somebody had a good question about this, we need to set in a CSRF token also. So we're using this tag here, and we're passing in CSRF_token. And just to try to give you a quick explanation of this, a CSRF token protects us from CSRF attacks. And this is usually where when we submit a form, somebody could add in like a malicious script that modifies our data. So let's say Praveen goes in and he types his information in, and somebody on that submit process can actually steal Praveen's information, or they can manipulate that information and then try to send it in the backend. So a token is almost like a stamp or an encrypted something. It basically encrypts it and makes sure it encrypts the data and to make sure that nobody can actually manipulate that data. That's kind of like a rough explanation, but in Django, anytime we're sending a post request, we need to use this, at least in this method here in the templating engine. Later on, when we're working with our APIs, we won't actually need this. So that's what a CSRF token is, my best explanation of it. So at this point, typically in our form here, this is where model forms come in really handy. So we have all this project information. We would have to create a field for a title, a description, demo link, source link, and a lot of this information. And we don't want to have to do this manually. So what we could do here is just use this model form that we passed into the view. So in the template, all I have to do is add in the two curly braces, and I can just do form. So I passed in the form through the view. So this name right here, whatever we call that form, that's all we do is we pass it into the template. Let's go back into, let's close out navbar here. So project form, we pass it in like that, and that's it. So one field that we do need is going to be an input field or the submit button. So we do need to add that. So I'm just going to set the name here, not the name, but the type here. So type is going to be submit. And then the value itself, which will be the text for the button, this will be submit like that. So we have the submit button and a simple form. And if I save that, let's see what we get here. So if I refresh it, look at what we get. So we get all the fields representing the model here. Now we're going to need to customize this. Praveen, did you have a question, or was that just background noise?
Sorry, that was just background noise.
Okay, no worries, no worries. So here we go. We have a form. So really cool. We have this form, and it's going to do really cool things when we actually send this data. So when we actually start creating it. So at this point, I just want to style this information up a little bit. So we're not going to worry about like full styling, but you notice how the form fields kind of look bad here. They're just rendered out funny. Well, at this point, I just want to inline them. I just want to line them up and down, and I just use my hand motion to show that, and I realize you can't see. So the title should be up here, and then the body, description, and so on. So it should all just kind of go up and down like that. So we want to fix that. So for this, we can do multiple things here. So the first thing is we can actually output each form field on its own. So we can do something like this where I can do form.title. So we can actually access each individual attribute. And I'd recommend looking up the documentation to model forms and look at the actual source code to this, because they're really cool and it'll help you understand how they work. So I can actually do this. I can do form.title and just output the title here. So that's one field, and this is going to be the title field. So if I look at this, and in the inspect element property here, I can see that this is the title. You notice how we don't have a label here. So model forms are highly customizable, and we'll work with them later, but if I wanted to just output the label, I can do form.title.label. So if I save that, I can see the label now and the title. So I can do that for every single field. So I absolutely love model forms. So I rave about them every time I talk about them. So that's one way of doing things. We could also loop through each individual field. So I can actually create a for loop like this, and I can do for field in form, and then I can just add in the end for, and I can output each field like that. So I can also do end for, and then on each iteration, say we wanted to style this and wrap a div around each field, what we could do is pass in each field like this. So I can just do field, and then above it, I can just do field.label. So if I save that, we should get a label with a field. So if I refresh that, look at that. So we're outputting each field here in that loop. So the last thing I want to show you here, so we're going to use this method a lot later, but I want to show you the simple way of styling this, which is going to be simply to access the form. And we can also do .as_p. So what this is going to do here, it's going to add a paragraph tag around each field. And because of that, it's going to inline things. So I'm going to go ahead and remove that first, break the styling, and then I'll fix that for you so you can see it. So by default, this is how our fields get output. They pretty much just get thrown out into the template. But if I do as P, so I can just go back here, save that. If I refresh it, look at that styling. So that's what a model form does for us. That's all I had for the model form section. I'm going to take a look at my notes here. And that's it. So I just wanted to show you what a model form is, how to render it, and how to customize a few things with it. We'll deal with the styling later. There is one more thing I wanted to show you before we get to the actual CRUD operations. So we're going to be ready to actually submit this form. So the next section here, we're actually going to submit this data and create a project. But before that, you notice how we have a vote ratio or a vote total and a vote ratio here. There's certain fields that we don't want to see here. So this kind of stuff, a user should not be able to modify. When they add a new project to the database, this should be automatically generated based on votes, what that vote total and ratio is, and elements like that. So, or I guess actions like that, we want to be updated without the user being able to modify that. So I can actually go ahead and exclude certain fields. So I can do two things here. I can go in here and I can specify the exact fields that I want. And I'm not sure if this is going to work. I can't remember, but we can actually add in exclude here. And we can specifically tell Django or the model form to exclude these two fields. So in this case, we're going to do vote underscore total. And then we're going to say exclude vote ratio. So if I save that, let's go ahead and refresh it. And there we go. So those fields were hidden. So that method does work. Later on, we're going to have a user parent field here. So when a user is building out their project, they're going to see this field. So we'll want to exclude that. There's going to be a few other options, but that's it for the model form. So let me know if you have any questions there, Praveen. If you see any questions regarding the model form, let me know. If you want to clarify anything on that, just notify me. But for now, let's go ahead and move on to the next section. So the next section here in our CRUD operations is going to be the actual CRUD functionality. So in the course, we have create, read, update, and delete. Right now, we're going to start with create, and then we'll update a form and delete an item here. So let's move on to that. So for this, we have our view mostly built in. So to actually add an item, all we need to do is modify a few things. So from our form here in the front end, we're going to send some post data to this view here. So the first thing I want to do is check if this method that we call this view with is a post method. So by default, like right now, if we open up our terminal here, and if I open up the page, so let's go ahead and just try that here. So where the heck did that go? 1 second. Okay, so when I go ahead and open up this page, you see this changing right here? You see that it's a get method right there. So that's the method that we're sending this to. So by default, we're getting data. Well, when we submit the post, it's going to be a post, or when we submit the project, it's going to be a post method. So in here, we can run that check right in the view. So I can do if request. So we're accessing this request object, and there's a lot that comes with this. So I'd recommend actually just printing out the request object and see all that comes with it. We're going to use this quite a bit. So we're going to say if the request dot method, so we're checking the method here. If this is equal to post, and that's going to be in a string, then we want to actually process this form. So at this point, I just want to quickly print this out here. So we'll just do print, and we'll just say form data, and let's do request dot post like that. So let's see what happens here. So if I go ahead and submit this form from the front end, let's take a look here. So we'll just say, Praveen, what's a project that you've worked on lately? You did a project for a client, right?
Yeah.
What's the name of it? What would you call it?
School management system.
Cool management.
School.
Tool management system, right?
School.
Oh, school. Okay. So school management system. Okay. So for the description, let's go ahead and just do lorem ipsum here. I like to get some dummy text in here. We want to add this description. Let's say Praveen wants to submit the project, but he doesn't have a description yet. So he's just going to put in some filler data. We'll throw that in. The demo link, he doesn't have one, but he does have some tags. So let's say Praveen use HTML, Django, and React, because Praveen loves React and he hates Vue. So he's going to be using React for this project. So if I submit this, this is going to send a post request because of our form here. So we set the method up here, and that's going to send a post request. So if I hit submit, if everything worked correctly, let's take a look at what we have here. So we have this query dictionary here. We see the CSRF token. So this is that token. This just ensures that no data was manipulated. The token is the same one that the server generated, so nobody modified it. We see the title, and that stands for school, or that says school management system. We see the description and so on. So we can actually individually pull out this information. So for the tags, we actually see the IDs to the tags here and so on. So I hope that makes sense. We just sent post data. So we set the method, and now that's being sent in here. So we can actually get each element. So let's say I wanted to get the title. So I can set the variable here, and I can do the title is equal to request.post. And then I can just access the title like that. So that's one method. So what I could do is I can extract every single value out of this form, and then I can do something like project, or we'll just do that in a capital P, so project. So we can do project.objects.create, and we can just go ahead and go into the title and then set the title here to what we extracted from the form and so on. So that's a very labor intense way to do this. It's very manual, and we don't want to do this when Django gives us this awesome thing called a model form. So in this case, this is all we need to do with the model form. In the post method, we're going to regenerate this form here. So I'm going to do project form here, or I'll set the value. And inside of this form, we want to go ahead and pass in the post data. So we're just going to do request.post, and that's it. So this form is going to take all this data, and it's going to find all the names, all the attributes that line up with what's in the form, and it's going to put those into the form. So we haven't created this object yet, but we sent that data into the form. So once we have that, we can go ahead and check another condition. So we're just going to do if form dot is underscore valid. So the form can actually check and validate, make sure all the fields are good. So we can actually ensure the data was correct. So the form is going to make sure all the data was right. Then we can do form.save like that. And that's it. That's how easy it is to create something with a model form. So once we're done with this, I want to send the user back to the home page. So in Django.shortcuts.render here, or next to render, we want to import redirect here. And once a user submits this, we want to send them to another page. So they're done with it. They created their form or their project. So we're just going to do return, and we can do redirect, and we can access that page by the URL name here. So we'll go into URLs, and we want to send the user back to projects. So we're taking that name and we're passing that in here. So we'll just do projects. And if everything worked correctly, this should generate a new project for us. So in this case, we'll just do school. Actually, let me refresh this. So we'll go ahead and refresh it. We'll do school management. This is me typing when I know people are watching. So school management system. And we're going to add in that description. And there's no demo link, so we'll just add in Django, React. We'll just get all of those and we'll submit that. So we just got redirected back to the projects page. Now, if we look at this, we can see the project right here. So school management system, it's right there. Now the formatting doesn't look that good, but we see what we just added right here. So if I go to add project, and we'll just do another project, and we'll just add in some information. We'll set a tag. If we submit that, now we see another project. So we just completed create. So if that makes sense, or if something didn't make sense, let me know here. But let's go ahead and recap what we did. So we created our form. We passed that in here. On post method, we recreate an instance of that form. We pass in the data from the front end. We check if it's valid. If it is, we save it. And that takes the current model that that form is a part of, and it creates something in the database for it. So it takes that data, saves it, and redirects it. So I see one comment. It's saying, this is from Zion right here. He's saying you can press Control L in VS Code to make the line in which you're currently editing centered. Oh, I see. Okay, cool shortcut. Nice to know. Okay, so we created that, and the next thing we want to do is move on to update. So at this point, a lot of the work is already done for us. So we already have our model form. We don't have to create a new one. We have a view and URL here, but we just need to customize these. So instead of copying and pasting, I'm going to create these manually. So let's create another view here, and we're just going to call this update project. So update project, we pass in request here. This should all be repetitive now. You should see what we're doing at this point. So we'll just do return and then render. And for render, we're going to pass in request, and we're going to use the same exact template. So we'll just do projects / and then I get these notes here. So let's just remove that. We're going to use the same form. So that's why I didn't call this template like create project, because we want to use it for update and creating. So we're just going to use the same form. So project-form.html. And then we're going to pass in the context dictionary, which we'll need to create. So in here, let's go ahead and get the form. So we'll just do form. This is going to be equal to project form. Then we can go ahead and pass that form into the context dictionary. So context, and we'll pass that in, send the form in, and we'll throw in form. So we're gonna have to do something a little bit different. So what happens when we go to edit a project? So at this point, let's go ahead and add in an edit button. So I need to first create the URL here actually. So I'm gonna save this, and then let's go into URL. I'm gonna copy create project, and we're just gonna change all these up here. So we'll do update here, and then update. Okay, so for update, we typically need to know what project we're updating. So in this case, we do need to pass in an ID. So we're gonna use a string here, PK, and then end that with a /, and let's throw in the angle bracket in here. So the same thing what we did with the standard project here. So we passed that in. Now we are gonna get a project by its ID. So we need to go back to our views here, and let's just pass in PK. So before we actually finish up this view here, I wanna show you a few things. So let's go into our projects table here, and we're gonna pass in a new value. So we'll just do, actually let's leave that as blank here. So we just wanna make sure there's a new column, and let's take a link here, or we'll just create one manually actually. So let's create a link, and we'll just say edit. And then for the actual link value here, so for the href, we'll do href, and this is gonna point to URL update-project, and then outside of the single quote, so if I used a single quote here, I need to use a double quote out here. Let's just pass in the project ID. So we need to pass that in. So project.id. So this is going to link to that form now. So on each click for a project here, or on each project, we're going to have a link to the edit page. So let's go ahead and refresh this. And here we go. So we see the link here. So if I click edit, we go to that form. So everything's working so far. But what has to happen here is we need to actually pre-fill this information. Because if I submit this form, at this point, it doesn't know what project to edit. So we're either going to create a new one, or it just kind of gets confused here. So to actually pass in a project here, we want to go back into the view here. So let's close out projects. Let's close out URL here. And let's go into views. And let's get the project here. So we'll just do project. So we first want to query the project. So remember, we pass in the primary key. So we'll just do project.objects.get. And let's throw in the ID. So for the ID value, that's going to be the PK, the primary key. And all we need to do here is pass in the initial value into the form. So we're going to take this project and pre-fill the fields here with that form data. So we're just going to go ahead and add an instance in here like that. And we pass in project. So we're going to get a project with the fields pre-filled with that, or we're going to get a form pre-filled with the project attributes here. So now if I go back to a project, let's go to the school management system. So if I go to edit, now we see school management system, I see the data, and I can actually start modifying this information like this. So if I go to second project, now I clicked on the view project. So if I go to second project, we're seeing that all filled in. So to actually submit this information, it's going to look a lot like create, but we have to modify one little thing in here. So at this point, the template is the same. We're still sending the post data with the CSRF token, and we can just go ahead and do if, here, let's actually put this below the original form here. So we want to check the post method or the method. So we'll say if request dot method. If this is equal to post, then let's go ahead and process this form. So here's what we want to do. What the heck did I click there? Let's close that out. So if the method is post, we're going to get that form again. So we'll set that form, and this is going to be project form. And we need to pass in the post data just like we did before. So we're going to copy that and throw it in. But the problem is with this, if I just send in the post data, it's just going to create a new project for us. It's not going to know the difference. So we're just going to get duplicate projects. So in here, we need to pass in the instance again. So we'll do instance, and that's going to be the project. So there we go. So on post, we send in the post data, and then we tell it this is the project that we want to modify. So it's going to go into the database. It's going to refill that information. Thank you, Praveen, for fixing that. So I forgot to set the assignment there. So there we go. So we have that data, and we just want to check if this is valid. So we'll do if form.is_valid. And let's just do form.save. Okay, so let's just take this redirect right here and let's throw that in, and that should do it. So let's try this again. So let's go back to one of these projects. We'll refresh everything, and let's go to e-commerce website. So I keep forgetting that. I need to go to the edit button. So I see e-commerce website. Let's go ahead and do updated. Submit that, and there we go. So now if I go to e-commerce website, I can see that that was updated. So that's our create and our update values. So the only difference here is that we're simply getting a project, passing in the instance on the original method and on the post method, and we use everything else exactly the same as create. So the next thing I need to do here is delete. So Praveen, if you had something you wanted to reference or catch up on while I'm checking my notes here, let me know here. So just jump on in. So yeah,
I have something to add. So when you're writing views, what you can do is you can make your context dictionary. You can firstly initialize your context dictionary, and then you can modify them. Like if you want to add this form to the context dictionary, then you can add like this. So this will look this looks much cleaner. And same for the template. You can do this template is equal to, you can put that string here, copy that.
Can you show me the example? I'm trying to see where you're doing this. Oh, okay, I didn't see your code. So Praveen, I wasn't highlighting your code. Oh, so you're saying set the variable. I see. Okay, so you create the context
So
dictionary and then you
yeah,
modify it.
yeah, you can just initialize these what we can say, these arguments for render at the first, so you never like miss them to define them, miss to define them, like they will never return any error. So at so if you initialize it at very starting of the function, then you can modify it anytime, so it won't so it will what you can say, I just forget how to say that.
No worries.
So it will
Yeah.
avoid the error of like a reference error that in the context dictionary. So it will, it's just a good practice to do this.
Yeah, you're less likely to forget it, you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks a lot like class-based views. So I think we're all good here, right? So let's leave it like this. So you added in the context dictionary, you added in the template, and everything looks good. So let's resubmit this form. Let's make sure it works, just so there are no errors. So let's go into portfolio, and I keep clicking the view button, so I need to put those next to each other. So let's do portfolio and updated. So there we go. That's working good. That all checks out, Praveen. So I don't use this method that often. I think it looks clean though. So we'll just go with it. And if I need to customize it, I will. So now let's close this out with the delete method. So let's go ahead and do that. We have the create, we have the update, and thank you, Praveen, for changing that up and showing us. Let's go ahead and make the delete method. So for delete here, we need to create a new template. So what we're going to do here is when we click on delete, we're going to confirm. So we want to say, are you sure you want to delete this item? We'll let the user confirm it, and then they can either confirm or just go back here. So we'll create that page here. So the first thing I want to do here is create the template. So we'll go into templates and projects here. So this is inside of our app, and we're going to call this delete.html. So in this case, I'm going to create one delete page for every single item inside of our project here. So we're not gonna have multiple delete pages. We're just gonna fill in the item that we wanna delete. So this is gonna be dynamic. So let's really quickly just extend our main template. So we'll just do extends main.html. Let's bring in the block tags here. So we'll just do block content, close that up here. And at this point, we're not using JavaScript. So the way we're gonna send the delete method is gonna be with the form here. So we'll just do end block content. So I'm trying to minimize the use of JavaScript at this point. So the only other way to submit a post method from here would be to use a form. So we're gonna create a form here. And inside of this form, we're gonna set the method here. That's just gonna be a post method. For the action, let's set that to an empty string. So whatever the URL is, we need to pass in the CSRF token. So CSRF underscore token. And let's go ahead and add in a string here. So we're gonna add in a paragraph, or not a string, but a paragraph tag. And let's just say, are you sure you want to delete, and then the elements. So in here, we'll just put that in quotes. And I'm not gonna specify like project here. I'm just gonna add in objects. So remember, we're gonna be able to delete users or reviews or anything else that we wanna delete. We're gonna use this same template. So we're just gonna ask the user, make sure that they actually wanna delete this. And in here, we'll add in an input field. And at this point, this whole field or template is gonna look pretty ugly. We'll add in styling once we start using our theme here. So the first one here, this is gonna be the type of submit. So we'll just do submit. And then for the actual text, we just wanna do value. So for the actual value or for the text on the button here, we're just gonna do delete. Or I could just do confirm. No, I like delete better. I think that's better. Okay, so delete, and then we're gonna add in a link, and we're gonna give the user the option to go back here. So that's it. So the styling is not gonna look good. And at this point, we'll just hard code that value. So we'll just say href, and let's send a user back to projects. So we'll just do URL, projects, and that's it. So we have a form, we're gonna send a post method, and we need to create a view to actually delete an element. So in this case, we'll go into our views. So underneath update project, let's go ahead and create that, and we're just gonna say delete project. Now for deleting elements, we will have a view to delete each item, but they're all just gonna use the same template. So pass in request, and Praveen, I'm just gonna use the same I guess, method that I've been using. So I can't switch that up mid-tutorial. So I'll just keep using my practice here. So at this point, let's just do a return, render, request, and we want to go into projects / delete.html. So in this case, I'm just gonna not even create a context dictionary. I'll just say object like that. And this is gonna be project. So we're gonna get this project in a second. So in the template, remember we access things by the key. So in delete, we call it object, even though it's a project. So in this case, let's go ahead and pass in the primary key. So we want to know which item we are deleting. And later on, we are going to create a restriction. So only a user or the owner of a project can delete it. So at this point, if somebody finds out our project ID, they can easily go to this URL and just delete anybody's project. So we'll fix that later, but once we actually add in users and authentication. So the first thing I want to do here is get that project. So we'll just do project.object.get. Let's get the project, grab that by the primary key. And at this point, all we need to do is just trigger delete. I think that's it. So we'll just say if request. So we only want to do this on the post method. So if request.post, if this is equal to, or request.method, not post. So if this is equal to post, so if that's a post method being sent in from the front end, we're just going to go ahead and delete the project. So we'll just do project.delete. So that's all we do. We call the delete method, and that's going to remove that project from the database. So at this point, I just want to redirect the user. So we'll do return, redirect, and the user is going to be sent back to the projects page. And that's it. So pretty simple method. We get the project by its ID, check if it's a post method, delete it, and return. So to actually get this, we need to go ahead and go into our URLs here. Let's copy the update view because the naming is going to be very similar. We need the primary key. This will be delete project. Change this to delete project. And we're going to change that to delete. So delete project. So in our projects page here, let's go ahead and add in a new table column here. So we'll add in an empty header there. Let's take this update link right here, and we're just going to paste that below and modify this. So we're just going to do delete, and we pass in the project ID, and we pass in delete. So I hope everyone's following along so far. We're kind of doing standard stuff as far as the linking up and stuff like that. The only real difference here is going to be the actual view. So let's test this out here. If we go to the page here, if I refresh it, we should see this delete link. So let's go ahead and delete the second project. We don't have anything in there anyways. So we'll just do delete. So if I click on that, let's see what's going on here. So no project has no attribute object. So that needs to be with an S here. So objects like that. So we're accessing the model manager. So that should fix it. So I'll go back here, refresh it, and try that one more time. So end block. The fun thing about live coding is you get more errors like this. So let's see, invalid end block. So that was in, I'm assuming the delete page, the delete template. So end block content, it's not context. Okay, block content, end block content. So there we go. So right now, if I go to delete a project, we pull up this page and we say, are you sure you want to delete? And then the title, which is second project. I could go back, or I could just hit delete. So I can confirm that, and that project was removed. If I want to remove project 3, I can click that, delete it, and now we're slowly removing projects. We'll remove another project, and there we go. So that's it for this section. In this section, we did two things here. We created the model form, built out a template, got things ready, and then just handled create, update, and delete. So let's go into the chat. Let's see if anybody has questions. At this point, that's all we're going to cover for today. Just wanted to make that a hopefully shorter stream. I want to make sure they're on point. So let me change my Zoom here, and let's see if we have any questions. If not, we'll go ahead and just end that. Praveen, did you see anything here at all?
No.
Nobody brought anything up. Okay, cool. Well, in that case, let's go ahead and just end the stream. I'll zoom in really quick here. Let's see. Just so we can read something here. Okay, cool. Well, I'm glad it made sense. Thank you for joining, whoever joined in for this stream. This is going to be posted up on YouTube probably within the next hour or two. So this is going to be session 3. So it concludes session 3 of our Django bootcamp. And we just handled model forms and CRUD operations.